there are so many different challenges we encounter, and I don't know yet at what stage will be too big for me or whether I can keep on that learning curve. Being an entrepreneur wasn't really a thing. Now the world's changed. You've got kids coming out of university going, I want to be an entrepreneur. That wasn't necessarily a thing.
Raj, the founder and CEO at Hytro.
We're dominant in football and rugby. We have cricket teams. I mean, one of the surprising ones for me was Formula One. Diversity of thought is really important in the team. People seeing things from different perspectives gives you a greater set of tools to problem solve and a greater view of what could be going on here.
Yeah.
So if you've got a team of people who see the world the same way, you've got blind spots you might not be aware of.
Welcome to FounderMetrics by Vested, the podcast where we dive into the world of hotshot business leaders and the specific metrics, not just the usual KPIs, that drive their game-changing companies forward. I'm your host, Ifti Nasser, CEO and founder of Vested, and I'm excited to take you on this journey with me into the world of successful founders. Today, we've got Raj, the founder and CEO at Hytro. It'd be brilliant for you to give us a little bit of an intro to yourself, Raj, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, FD. Thank you for being on the podcast today. So I'm Raj, I'm CEO and co-founder at Hytro. At Hytro, we've integrated blood flow restriction into wearables to make it accessible for the first time. Blood flow restriction is an amazing tool to help accelerate recovery and enhance performance. And we're in over 100 pro sport teams across the world now with thousands of athletes using our products.
That's brilliant. Well, we'll hear a little bit more about the blood flow piece, but let's kick off with how you started. I mean, your journey is quite unorthodox. I mean, you started life as an accountant.
I don't like the way you said that. There's nothing wrong with being
I love accountants. I love accountants, but it's quite a different trajectory.
Yeah,
go for it.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, I started my life with a Big Four accounting firm, and then classically, I went into banking, management consultancy. Did that for 15 years. I was, crunching spreadsheets and working at many of the banks in London, the city. But I got to a point where I really wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I didn't really see there was much purpose to it.
Yeah.
I needed a bit more. And I was looking for something different to do, and I've always been into sports. So everything, growing up, I played everything going. I'm Sri Lankan origin, so I played a lot of cricket. I'm sure you probably did as well.
Had a go.
There you go. So I played a lot of sports. So I went looking for something in that kind of area. And at that point, I met a guy called Paul Harter, who's actually one of our co-founders in Hytro. And Paul had retired from a very distinguished career in law and founded a business in health, fitness, nutrition coaching. I joined him on that as the CEO, and we did that for a while. And then we hired a guy called Dr. Warren Bradley to help us with our clients. And Warren, who had a PhD in exercise physiology and spent a decade in pro sports, after a few months of working with us, he said, I've got this idea. He spent all his money on a patent, but no idea what to do with that idea. And he put it in front of Paul and I, and we had a look at it and thought, this is phenomenal. With the power of this idea and the scalability is amazing. And that idea was the genesis for Hytro. And that's how it all came about.
Okay, so tell us, is the patent around the blood flow restriction, or is it something associated with the materials used?
No, it's actually quite a broad patent, which always surprises IP lawyers. It's the integration of blood flow restriction into garments by any means. So that's phenomenal for us.
Any means?
Yeah.
I'm a chemist by training, so I understand the breadth of a patent. So
so we're happy with that. It's granted the UK, it's pending internationally.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that patent.
Well, do you want to tell me a bit more blood flow restriction and explain that? So very simply, and I won't go into deep side because Warren would be the guy for that one, but blood flow restriction involves a strap at the uppermost part of the arms or legs. You tighten that strap so you restrict the venous return of blood. So you allow the arterial flow out, restrict the venous return. That means the muscles then start to swell and it could cause physiological adaptation. So it's a stressful environment. And then whatever exercise or recovery you do, it multiplies the benefits of that. So it's a really powerful and potent tool. You get hormonal responses, you get flushing of kind of toxins and waste products, you get systemic build-up as well. So it's really powerful. I mean, a lot of the sports teams use it for acceleration recovery. Immediately post-game, they'll put Hytro shorts on, strap in, and get kind of the recovery hormones going at that point. So that's kind of what we do as a company.
It sounds absolutely amazing. So tell us about that switch. Firstly, to get into accountancy, just very briefly, and then that. Yeah, what was going on in your mind? I know you took that time out, but
so I mean, for me, you probably appreciate this as a kind of an British Asian over here. Yeah. You classically do kind of one of these normal jobs, like you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor. It's like generally one of those, right? And that's what your parents would be happy with. And generally, so my parents were delighted when I started with a Big Four accounting firm. And that was the classic, and that was the norm back then. Again, we're talking about 20 or so years ago. being an entrepreneur wasn't really a thing. It's kind of thing you probably see, Richard Branson does, but very few other people do. Now the world's changed. You've got kids coming out of university going, I want to be an entrepreneur. That wasn't necessarily a thing. So being an entrepreneur was never on my agenda at that point. It was going, okay, so where do I want to take this career and where do I want to be? But it got to a point, I remember working on a project when I was a management consultant. I worked like 30 hours without a break, and you lived in the office for that time. And you're thinking, what am I doing this for? I'm not doing this for being a consultant. I wasn't really benefiting anyone, really, being honest. I wasn't doing it for me. I didn't really want to become a partner in a big corporate machine. So what's the point of this? And it lacked purpose and lacked direction. And and also it lacked tangible output, what you can see and feel every day as which you get as a founder. Like you actually really, everything you do as a founder really matters. And it's because I mean, one of the big things is there's an existential risk of your business almost every day, particularly at our stage, where there's so many things that go wrong, so many things go right, thankfully, but so many things go wrong. So many problems, right? And that's kind of where I like to be, and I enjoy that. And I wasn't getting that fulfillment in kind of corporate life, and that's why I looked for other ways to do that.
Yeah, going back to that Asian background, you'll have scored top marks, with the top 4. So that switch, I guess is convincing your parents and everybody in the family is the first point. How'd that go down?
I think it's a little bit different for me because I was quite far in my career at that point. So I was 15 years in the bank. So if something went wrong, and let's say in startup life and I had to go back, I could go back and it's not a problem. So for me, it de-risked it. And for my parents and for others, I'm like 41 now. Right? When I started as a founder, I was 37, I think it was at that point. I'm old enough to make my own decisions at this point. so they're like, okay, you've done okay in your career. If you want to take the risk, that's fine. And it's actually interesting how incredibly supportive they are. And what's interesting for me now is in the British Asian mentality is changing. Yeah. And we're seeing, and I was speaking to you the other day about this, about the great work that the British Asian Entrepreneurs HQ are doing in this space. Yeah. They're bringing the community together because it's never really, we've had lots of people do fantastic work in different areas, but not bring it together and actually enhance that community to drive it forward. And the guys like Gervo and Amma are doing a fantastic job at doing that. And we'll see more of this now. We'll see more British Asians become entrepreneurs and have that support network around them. I mean, I'm sure you can tell your story in this. I don't know how much support you had in your career around you and when you were a founder and what happened, but it's changing, and thankfully some of the guys, what they're doing is helping with that.
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, thanks for that introduction. And it is something that I want to do whatever I can to feed into it, because you're right, there isn't that depth of experience or networks or capability to support young Asians or even older Asians as you were, if you are happy to be
not really
put in that box.
Okay. No, I am.
It was
in that
your
box
own words. It was your own words. But no, that's yeah. I think that's a great initiative, and I want to see how I can support it as well myself. But going back to your own journey, you said you took that time out and to reflect, and it sounds almost like fortuitous or just lucky that you met up with your co-founder.
I think in a founder's life, I think there are moments of luck. I think there are definitely aspects where it's not all planned, it's not all set out it's going to be, but you've got to be in a place where the opportunities are there. And I think for me, it was when I left kind of the corporate environment, it was, can I put myself in an environment where there'll be opportunity and where there'll be kind of startup activity? And that was the first point. Yeah. So that's why I joined up with Paul and the first initiative. It wasn't necessarily that was going to be the thing, but it's now I'm in the startup world, in the startup kind of environment, actually kind of who will you meet, what will happen? And we've seen that now over the few years that we've been doing Hytro, that ecosystem and actually who you meet is incredibly important. Yeah. That's why we go back to kind of the British Asian Entrepreneurs Network. Now the doors are opening all over the place, left, right and centre. And like you get invited to do things like this and you get, you get other things happen that are incredible. There's a lot of things I'm actually not allowed to talk about that are really happening at Hytro. They're incredible, like they're just through our own network. And that's the important part. You're in there, you're in the conversation, whereas before you're not part of it. And then some of it's luck, some of it's hard work, I'm sure. Yeah,
but as you say, once you're in the network, you're known, and then I guess there's not a snowball effect, but certainly a catalytic reaction that takes place once you're in the system. Yeah. You get to know, and lots of other opportunities may or do often come to pass. So going back to the business, part of what we trying to do at FounderMetrics is trying to help founders. It's about sharing. It's not about building our profile to that extent, other than that this is where people can benefit and learn from one another. But we're always focused in on the key metrics that are there, the general KPIs of a business, whether it's EBITDA or cash flow or profitability. But as a founder, you have a different sense of the business, and there are other things that you're looking at that will help you gauge whether you're on track.
Yeah.
So for you, what were they in the very early stages, and have they evolved? Have they changed? Are there different ones?
I think probably didn't really at the beginning of our journey, weren't really clear on what we were looking at, and I think we were probably a bit too focused on revenue, like the classic ones that everyone looks at. What's your average order value? What's your revenue? What's going on? And actually, slightly more intangible ones are sometimes more powerful. So one of the things that happened during the journey was increasingly we had coaches, when we were speaking to them, pro sport coaches, say to us, "Oh, I can't believe I didn't think of this myself," which is one thing. And then second thing was, can I invest in the company?
Brilliant.
And get involved. And so we now have over 80 pro sport coaches invested in Hytro, and that's still continuing and snowballing. So for us, that external validation of what we're doing and that continuing advocacy of those individuals is really powerful for us, and that continues to happen. In the same way, one of the things that we see all the time now is that we get more and more inbound, and we get it from all over the world. So a great indication for us that we're on the right track. We had inbound from countries that we weren't marketing in or doing anything in, and we don't even know, like, at that point how it comes through. You get something in inbox from a Mexican, so there was a team who were top of the Mexican league at that point. Like, how on earth did that happen? But obviously it's through
networks.
Networks, coaches talking to other coaches. Same happened with a team in Israel a while ago as well, and other teams across the world. We then had again, another really good indication that we're on the right track is we're a B2B business, and so we sell through relationships and speaking to clubs. Down the line, we've got to get to a point where we automate a lot of what we can do. And actually, we had a sale through our from a Premier League team, sale directly through our website without us doing anything. And it's like, that's where we want to be, but that actually wasn't what we were set up for at the time. So again, like, how did that happen? Again, it's a really good indication we're on the right track. And on the same vein, there was a few instances a while ago where we sold to Premier League teams, and then the next few weeks we saw players from those teams come to our website and buy more products. And we're, again,
themselves. So the teams had purchased an amount from you or kit from you, and then these guys had come personally.
So we asked the coaches what's going on here, and again, other players want products to have at home so they can use it again. So again, they're not like tangible metrics in some ways, but there's actually this really good indications of a number of different fronts that actually this is going in the right way. And from our side, we're going to have two users. Like, you've got the coaches who make the purchase, but then the player buy is incredibly important.
So both of those two, you were keeping a track of tangibly, or just a sense of?
We track all the teams that use our products. When they re-up, how much kit they have. What we need to get be squad wide, because that's what we want to be. And then we look at what happens with the players, and actually, okay, one of the key things about that is they're obviously advocates for Hytro. So is there more we can do with them? And then we start to see players kind of buy into Hytro and invest in Hytro as well. So
how many coaches have invested, and how many players?
So
professionals
coaches is over 80 players. I think it's about 20 or so. Sometimes it's actually quite difficult to know who are players and who not, because we did a Seeders campaign. Actually, we've got lots of rugby union players come in, and we've got to identify who they are in amongst the 200. But there's some notable ones, for example. So a great one we often talk about is Cameron Norrie, who's the British #1 tennis player. So he had a knee issue during Wimbledon last year, and he started using Hytro to help him with that. He then started using it for preparation. He started using it for training. He started using recovery. And then genuine advocacy of the product. So he wanted to invest. Alongside him came his 2 physios, his strength and conditioning coach, his tennis coach, and one of his mates, all invest in Hytro. Authentic use of the product. And that's really important for us.
That is amazing. To have many people who have interacted with you not wanted to invest. Sounds like you've just got them all tied up.
Well, it all comes around. I mean, at the beginning it was very hard because we had a new product, a new category. It was that the beginning bit was the hardest. I say that, I'm sure it's going to continue to be hard. It's never not hard, right, being a founder.
Well, you're always moving to the next objective or goal,
Yeah, but for us, that inbound is a good flip for us, where for us at the beginning, it's like, we've got a brilliant product, but we need other people to know about it, and we need coaches to tell the other coaches, and it starts to build. But I think that point where now you get an inbound, and now it's actually, it's it's not less effort because you've got to deal with everything coming in. You continue to build a business, but it's a good kind of factor of, okay, this is moving in the right direction. It's going in the right way.
So that North Star metric, for want of a better phrase, seems to have been the amount of, unsolicited advocacy and promotion and desire to be part of the journey.
That's
so
true.
How many people are now part of the journey? How many people are tangibly vested in the business?
There's about 200. It does change quite quickly. It's 234, I think it is. I think invested. We did do campaigns through Cedars, so obviously raised the number. So I think it's 2, 3, 4.
Well, no doubt you'll need some help in managing that cap table, which Vested will help you with, obviously. But going back to the business now, where do you feel things are going over the next year or two in the short term, and then maybe we can pick up on the longer term?
So in the short term, it's very much kind of US expansion of the focus at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've seen, we've done really well in the UK market, and we need to continue to build that. But then the B2B in the US market gives us size and scale that you actually don't have over here, particularly in the college market as well. So,
all right. So you haven't done the universities here, because I guess it's a different league, isn't it?
It's completely, unfortunately, the way it is in the US market, the colleges are vastly funded. There's an appetite for real performance. It's kind of centralized funding. So it's different. So the college market over there is a big play for us. Pro sports as well. We've got our first NFL team, Washington Commanders, first NBA team, Utah Jazz, a couple of MLS teams. We supply the USA men's and women's soccer teams. Need to build that up. So that's the B2B business. The medical arm actually will be a really important vehicle for us. We're on the University of Sheffield Hallam Accelerator at the moment for getting us into the medical market. It's a difficult route to navigate.
But yeah, that's totally different. That's a total step up. But let's stay on the sports for a second then. So in terms of the number of teams, the different sports, tell me about how many different sports you're in.
That's actually a good question. We're dominant in football and rugby. Those are our two main sports. We have cricket teams. One of the surprising ones for me was Formula One. And that came about. So we supply the Alpine Formula One team. We work with their academy as well, and we work with a number of other drivers across the grid. There are lots of random sports, so where we help athletes individually as well. So probably in about 15 to 20 different sports, but it'll be some of them are like, for example, we have a long jumper who uses our product. We have some triathletes who use our product. But team-wise, it's mainly football, rugby, cricket. And then we're starting to push into, obviously, American sports, basketball, American football, baseball. Those are kind of where we're going.
So who are your competitors, Raj?
So from a BFR perspective, so there are other blood flow restriction devices that are out there, but they all have problems that we solve for. So either they're expensive, difficult to use, they can be kind of need require supervision by a practitioner. We solve for all of those. So you can use our product without supervision. It's easy and rapidly accessible. And that's why pro sports love it. It's so simple. It's like a beautifully simple product. So you can give it to a player, multi-million pound player, and you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to set them up. You can just turn the strap in and get on with it. And so that's the basis for it.
And what about the manufacturing? How is it produced at the moment?
So we manufacture in Portugal at the moment, and Portugal is one of the textile hubs of Europe. Our product, again, it looks really simple, but it's quite difficult to manufacture. So you have to get the right tensile strength to make sure the strap's sub-occlusive, so it doesn't contract the arterial vein. There's lots of technicalities to it, but we use Portugal for the moment.
And given the scale and scope of in that success scenario, which looks like you're well and truly en route for, how have you thought about that, for want of that phrase, back end of the business, that supply side? The demand seems to be self-generating and almost viral. But how are you going to take that production side?
So we're already planning for that. So we're speaking to companies in the Far East at the moment about what happens when we have those huge volumes of orders that we need to actually progress. So there's a couple of different aspects on that in terms of product innovation and what we're doing going forward. And then there's how do we actually manufacture those. And we've got lots of different partners that we're speaking to in kind of different areas of the world. Our product is not as easy as it may seem to manufacture, so it takes a little bit of time to build those relationships with everything. And I think this is true for all founders. It takes time to build the relationships before actually want to start working with anyone. And so we're speaking to lots of different individuals or different companies at the moment about those future plans.
Brilliant. And you'll need it, because it sounds like it's going to be a barnstormer. So moving from the UK to the US, same language and the rest of it. but not. What do you think are the biggest challenges for you? Are you planning to move the business across there, as many people do once they hit the US market? They end up setting up a Delaware company or and then moving the whole caboodle across. What's the plan?
So we do actually have a Delaware subsidiary at the moment, but so we're trying to hire in the US for a start, and hiring, as again all founders know, is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Particularly at our stage where we don't have a huge team, so that we got to be very careful. You get it wrong at that point, it can be catastrophic for the business. So what we try to do is de-risk it as much as we can. And we've done that a little bit over here, where you almost want to bring people into the fold and work with them a little bit before you actually make it perm. That's not always workable, but where you can do that, we try and do that. It's just that risk of bringing someone on a big salary for a startup, it not working out, them not delivering. You lose them both the money, the time, and then you have to explain to kind of investors and rework the business. And it's a difficult situation to be in. So trying to get that hiring piece right. I think Warren and I, so two of the main founders, will have to spend a lot more time in the US. We already have started doing that. We were there last November. We're going there again in April. Warren probably there again in May. So we're going to spend more time in the US, because I think boots on the ground, face-to-face interaction. So when I was there in November, the face-to-face meetings were really important for me to understand more the mentality of the coaches on the ground, build the relationships. And again, that's where a lot of this comes from, right? Is the relationship building aspect.
And it goes back to that metric of yours that you talked about earlier, about that, those coaches buying into the principle as well. But picking up on the recruitment and making sure that you have people who are committed to the game as well, absolutely crucial. So for the team, are you using shares or options as part of the reward mechanism and that long-term commitment, that long wavelength contribution? Yeah, so we offer EMI shares to full-time employees. We don't have many full-time employees at the moment, but that is definitely part of the picture for us. I think there's what we noticed, like for Warren and myself, who are the founders, like we live, breathe Hytro 24/7, and actually our team, our core team, so kind of like the core guys who are full-time, and actually the guys who are kind of on fractional contracts, also do the same. But we know as it changes over time, that's quite difficult to retain the culture. And obviously founders have to be a little bit aware that other people aren't founders too, and they don't have the same, like I'm there at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday texting Warren going, what about this, what about that? And you can't really text your team members who aren't, they don't need to appreciate that. But there's still a cultural aspect in that, and you want them to feel invested in it, and they want to feel part of the journey. And share options is a big part of that. So I think that we've set aside a pool for that, and we will definitely encourage that in our team going forward. That's brilliant. And what about for your advocates? Have you thought about how you reward them? I mean, it sounds like everybody is an advocate, just full stop, but probably more for themselves. Yeah. But can you imagine having them as marketing talent for you guys as well, and having them vested again shares in the future?
Yeah, there's different ways of doing it. So, for example, with Cam Norrie, he's actually invested, so he has shares, and then actually does stuff for us as well, because it grows his investment as well as it's good for him. But there's a point here where I think lots of individuals want different things, and coaches in our network who invested, actually one of the things that attracted a lot of them was the fact that other coaches have invested in Hytro, and our network in the coaching community across sport is actually quite vast. Yeah. So we've had coaches invest in Hytro go, I'm looking for a new job, and where do you want to go? I'm going to Formula One. Okay, so we know coaches in Formula One. Let's put you in contact.
It's brilliant, isn't it? That network that you're creating across the coaches within sports, and they're not always. I mean, the perception is that everybody carries on in the same sport. It's not necessarily the case, is it?
No, I mean, particularly in pro sports, where you move and change jobs as pro sport coaches quite frequently, this is actually quite useful. So they've seen, it almost got to a point where people were speaking to other people, and they're not realising they're both Hytro investors, and it's great. It's like we've actually really permeating pro sports in the UK, and we can help. And actually, we can help with that. And I mean, one of the things that's noticeable actually in pro sports is not actually paid very well for the jobs that they do. And it's just actually quite surprising as someone coming into it, something Warren always spoke to me about. And it's like, okay, so we don't really understand that, but actually we can help facilitate people and help them with their careers. Let's do so. So that's more of a kind of philanthropic thing for us.
So is that something in addition to Hytro, this whole notion of a network or almost, a place where pro sports coaches can collaborate, help one another, facilitate next jobs even. I mean, it sounds like an interesting network. And was there nothing of this nature before?
So there are pro sports kind of communities out there. I mean, we didn't set out with let's build this pro sport community. What can happen with us is Warren spent a decade in pro sports, and so he knew a lot of people. But then we had this product, and we were speaking to more pro sport coaches, and then the more people we spoke about, the more they liked the product, they wanted to get involved. And then our network just started to expand. So a coach got involved in Hytro, and then he would introduce another coach and another coach. And we didn't set out with, let's build this community. And a lot of brands, I think, set out with that objective. And that, for me, doesn't feel genuine.
It seems very organic, very authentic.
Yeah, and it has been for us. It's like, I think before Hytro, and a lot of people said, you got to build your communities. And I was like, it's just, you're looking at Gymshark and you're going, they built a community, and they did it authentically, and they did it in a brilliant way, but you don't set out to do it. It just happened for us. And now we're very lucky we have the power of this community behind us, and we need to both continue to build on and expand it, but give back to that community and show real value to them. So that cross-sport interaction is something that they want, and actually would benefit for us. So let's see what we can do in that space.
Yeah, very symbiotic in terms of both the opportunity and the support that you can give them.
Agreed.
So you mentioned about moving out of the sports arena, the pure sports space, and into the medical space. Tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, is that a doubling of the market opportunity, a 10xing of the market opportunity, or even more?
Yeah, so for us, the pro sport business is the foundation.
Yeah.
It's the fundamentals of what we do. We will always operate in the pro sports element. We kind of built for sport, proven by science in many ways. The medical opportunity is incredibly exciting because we can positively impact the lives of millions of people across the world with our product. So there's a societal impact on this. And it's 100x what pro sport is really. There's so many different use cases for Hytro. Everything from kind of knee replacements to shoulder issues to cardiovascular to there's studies coming out on brain health and the impact of BFR on that, to improving kind of old age. Like one of the issues with old age is decreasing muscle mass, lack of mobility. Yeah. We can improve all of that. So the problem for us, in a good problem in many ways from our product perspective, is we can operate in the medical area in multiple use cases. So we've got to be really clear, where do we want to start? How do we want to do that? What the go-to-market strategy is? What's the regulatory environment? And navigate that through. So, it will take us a few years to get through that, which is why we're starting now. But that's an incredibly exciting.
It sounds like there's a lot of people doing a lot of research on it already. So it's not something you're having to fund or stimulate, but you can tap into that work and leverage what you guys are already doing to, as you say, millions and millions of people.
Yeah, so BFR is classically a rehabilitation device. So that's where it kind of got, been used. We can now unlock many different use cases for it, and we can unlock scalability of the product. So that's kind of why, absolutely. It's just an opportunity to really improve the lives of millions of people with that product. So yes, it's exciting for us. It's just a difficult one to navigate, I think, and it's one we've got to be kind of laser focused on.
Certainly with the regulation around it is probably even more challenging than whatever you've been doing to date. And that advocacy and with all the coaches that are vested in your business, it's almost perpetuating. There you go. Thank you, Raj. So beyond talking about medical applications, what about space?
So there's limits to what we can talk about on this point, really, but absolutely. So there's applications for Hytro in space. Again, one of the issues astronauts suffer from is the loss of muscle. So yes, we're in conversations with a number of companies, public and private, that you would have heard of, but we can't talk about it at the moment. You'll have to watch this space.
Okay. On that. I was just guessing that would be an application, but it's brilliant that you've already and what's interesting explored that.
What's interesting on that point is that it came to us rather than the other way around. It's similar to kind of what's happened in the inbound inquiries. So very exciting. Can't say anything more about it at the moment, I'm afraid.
Sounds like the sky's the limit.
Exactly that.
So let's go back to the personal. We heard a little bit about your personal journey to where you are today. Where do you think this will go for you? And is there a level of a business that you think, I like the early stage, I like that creation piece, and I'll let go? Or do you actually want to run this through to a multinational, multi-billion-dollar proposition?
The answer at the moment is I don't know yet. It depends. So all founders go on a learning curve, and the challenge is how long can you stick on that learning curve before actually the curve gets too high for you and actually you probably need to step back. At the moment, I've been okay. And what I'm trying to do is identify bits that I'm not so good at and actually try and plug those in different ways, whether it's coaching for myself, whether it's hiring, where it's what do we need as a company to grow. So, for example, for me, it's like I've spoken a bit before about how I'm quite introverted by nature. I'm not,
you don't come across that way.
I'm sure people say that, but I, obviously on a podcast it's different. I'm doing all the talking. Generally, I prefer to be listening. I'd much rather, have one-on-ones with a few people and listen. I don't want to spend all my days surrounded by people. That's I find that quite draining at times. But I have to do that as the CEO of the company. I mean, it's essential that you're there with your people. So it's like, how do I find ways to manage that without being drained all the time? So that's my kind of personal challenge. And so I'm looking at coaching to help me with that. So what's the best way of managing that situation? I think there are so many different challenges we encounter, and I don't know yet at what stage will be too big for me or whether I can keep on that learning curve. Logically, when we get to a bigger size, it will probably suit me better simply because that's the background that I've had. So actually, it might actually play into my strengths, but I don't know. Maybe you can answer that a bit more from your journey.
I don't know. Similar journeys, but this is not about me. This is very much about you, Raj. But going back to that piece, you stepped back, and this is now founder to founder, and the challenges. You stepped back from your work in that conventional journey that you'd gone. What did you do during that year about you?
Yeah, so I went traveling for a bit, like classically everyone does, right? So I went out to Africa for a bit. I was working for a company in Malawi at that time, kind of volunteering out there. For me, I think it's always been about understanding different perspectives in life and understanding the way people view the world. I think that's incredibly helpful. We had a conversation previously about this, how our upbringings in different environments over here is actually, and I do believe this, is actually really powerful in the founder journey itself. So let me explain that a little bit in terms of, I grew up in an area called Newbury, and this was about 35 years ago. Now I'm 41, so a long time ago. Me and my brother were two of the only...
With lots of Asians.
Exactly. I think we were about a handful of kids at our school who were not white. And at home you see one thing, and at school you see another. And the cultural differences actually gives you an appreciation at a young age that people see the world in different ways. It also means that you have a different mindset, that you can see potentially opportunities. You can see, sometimes people
see the gaps, the differences.
Exactly that. And people often got like an outsider mindset where you see problems in a different way. There's a book I'm reading by Matthew Syed I love as an author, and it's called Rebel Ideas, and it's about how that diversity of thought is really important in a team. People seeing things from different perspectives gives you a greater set of tools to problem solve and a greater view of what could be going on here. Yeah. So if you've got a team of people who see the world the same way, you've got blind spots you might not be aware of. And he starts the book with talking about kind of the CIA and Al Qaeda, and you can kind of get the picture from that. But I think that upbringing where there was an appreciation, difficulty, and challenge in that, and I don't know how much you want to talk about yours on this, and being kind of very different. I think kind of almost made me want to kind of prove and to work harder than many people. I think there's a point about immigrants and children of immigrants that actually is perhaps not talked about enough, that there's over-representation of founders who are immigrants or children of immigrants. Yeah. And there's actually a lack of funding for those same founders. There's correlations between the two. The question is, okay, so why is it actually a lot of immigrants in terms of immigrants and children of immigrants are founders? And I think it's a lot to do with the mindset. It's to do with you're seeing things that other people aren't seeing. You're seeing the opportunities. You don't necessarily constrained by the bubble of kind of growing up, but this is the way the world is.
You've got at least 2 echo chambers, and they are often almost mutually exclusive. Yeah, the overlap is minimal, but that ability to bridge the two and see the gaps, I think, is I actually got that from our conversation, our last conversation. I just thought that was so insightful. I think the other thing for me certainly was that you have no roots. You're immigrants, and you're like a seed in a new environment. You can be blown around quite easly. You don't have the strength of location, and that location is almost just a descriptor for being held in one place or in one fixed mindset. Even everybody that we grew up with all had depth of relationship within the geographies that they were in. They had uncles, aunties, grandparents, lots of resource to lean on, whereas we didn't have that. So you had to be adaptive, you had to be agile, to use the phrase, and you had to create your own roots or stability as soon as you could. And I think that's something that's that need to be agile and need to adapt, I think, is something that's shared between you and I from our conversation, but also that other point that you just mentioned. Even though there's these obvious advantages that these people have, the fact that the investment to support that is relatively speaking small, it is a disappointment as well, just as it is for female entrepreneurs and founders. There is a need to actually support those alternative mindsets, which are often potentially more rewarding.
Yeah, no, I mean, what we've seen in the world, I think in that book, Matthew Syed talked about in 2017, I think 43% of the Fortune 500 companies were led by minority founders, right? There's a clear talent there, but without support, you're not going to get anywhere. And there's some really good programs over here that I've been on as well. The Mountainside Ventures program for underrepresented founders, great program, helps get us ready for VC investment in particular, which is the sticking point. I think the VC piece is the one that is the hardest to open up as an underrepresented founder.
Why?
It's a good question, and I think you should get a VC on here, and I'll get them to answer the question.
But from your perspective, why?
Getting in the room with the right people at VC is difficult. So what we've often found, if we can get in a room with someone who can make a decision and tell them the story of Hytro and show them what we've done, they will inevitably understand where we're going and can see the scalability and kind of the vision of the business. The opportunity. But it probably takes someone experienced to do that. And if you... I'm really careful how I don't want to make this sound kind of too negative, but if you get blocked by maybe a younger analyst at a VC, perhaps hasn't got the experience of seeing what the narrative can take and where it can go, you won't get to that person who actually make a decision, can understand the business and go forward. But even to that point, to get to someone at a VC that you can speak to is hard, and that's where the network comes in. And so we're starting to get there. But getting to that first person is incredibly difficult. I don't know if that's... Your...
No, I guess we went down a slightly different route in terms of self-funding to start off with, because the whole idea was to learn around the supporting early stage businesses. But there was a huge amount I could have learnt differently. And in hindsight, you can always take different paths. So beyond Hytro and time in America now, what else is life about for you? I mean, what's...
family is obviously the first thing. I've got twin boys who are 21 months now, so they take up a lot of time. As you can imagine, they're a handful. We just went to Lisbon for the weekend, a long weekend. I was trying not to work too much during that, but they're a handful, particularly on the planes, and then just trying to organise. I'm sure you know with a family yourself, it's difficult, especially when you've got two of them. And juggling that and being a startup founder is pretty difficult some of the time. But it's a wonderful experience being a father, and it definitely changes you as a person, right?
It's been brilliant having you with us, Raj. Thank you so much
for
coming along and sharing your journey, your thoughts, and indeed the ways in which you've been gauging how to keep your business, Hytro, on track and keep an eye to the North Star of where it's going. Thank you for joining us on this episode of FounderMetrics. Remember, the biggest of ambitions are within reach when you leverage the right metrics and strategies. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and never miss out on any future ones. And don't forget to visit us on www.vested.com for additional resources, articles, and exclusive content. Join our growing community of entrepreneurs and founders by following us on LinkedIn, Twitter, X, and Instagram. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights. Together, let's continue to unlock and share the metrics of success and create a brighter future.